Hey, welcome back to Design Elements and Principles. Hope everybody enjoyed the little respite last week. Nice little break once we're rolling. I think that's it for the break. No, we have a spring break at some point. So you'll get another break in there, but we'll start rolling again. Glad to be back. Glad to be here. We're starting on texture. Texture is this week's element of design. Texture is going to start adding some visual differences. It can help add depth. We talk about depth and stuff. We talked about form earlier. That's one way to add depth. I'm talking about kind of like this visual. It's like a visual depth. It's not like a physical depth. Not like, oh, I added a drop shadow and so my thing looks like it has depth. No, texture adds like just this nuance, something special. It's non-flat design. There was an era in the past, and I'll talk about this more, is where we had flat design. And we took texture out of everything. We made everything clean and clear. But that was in response to a couple decades of the computer being new and us doing everything fancy we could do. We were doing things that look like chrome and shiny and drop shadows and liquid. I mean, even Apple's back on now this liquid thing. It's just too much. But texture adds a lot. So without further ado, we'll double check attendance. We'll do the lecture and we'll do Tuesday's assignments. Yeah, let's jump on in. So as we know, we do the attendance before Thursday. Just checking I have the right date there. Before Thursday, easy 5 questions, all based on graphic design. What is serif in typography? This is an easy one. It's the only one here that talks about typography, letters. Small decorative stroke on letters. Boom, you got it. You are good to go. Answer all 5. Use the internet as needed. Again, these are just to get your mind wrapped around and seeing some words and some discussion about graphic design. Hold on. That was weird. About graphic design. So that's why they're there. And it's a good way to take attendance. Some people are online, some people are in person, some people are here, some people are there. It's the best way to take attendance. Let's jump into the texture lecture. Got that open right here. I'm going to grab my drawing screen and we're going to jump on in. All right. Let's fix one thing real quick. So texture. Let's do the work area. Always resets on me. All right. We're talking about texture here. Texture is essentially an element to design that, here's the one, that refers to the surface quality or tactile feel of an object or artwork. That's a great way to put it. I wasn't able to say it correctly when I didn't have this in front of me, but that's a-okay when I was talking about depth. But we're talking about the surface quality or tactile feel. Actually, texture can be a physical part of a design as well. When we unbox now, very like Apple-y products, or most products now, if they're on the higher end, a lot of computers do it, not all, but like the packaging, the trend of unboxing, people on the YouTubes unbox something. It's so amazing to see somebody open up something. So companies really delve deep into how that box opened. And a lot of it is the surface or tactile feel of that object, not just the visual quality of it, but the tactile. They'll have matte finish with a gloss finish. When you add a foil stamp, you're adding a texture. A foil stamp isn't an ink. So we're getting further into that now, and people love it with their unboxing, and they see how, oh, look at the Apple did this and that, and then you turn it over and all it is a gloss logo on white, and we go crazy for it. That's one type, and that's very popular right now. The other one is just adding in a surface quality to the visual, something else that would help you communicate a message, help communicate an emotion when working in graphic design. It's fine. I am not a huge person who adds a lot of texture, but when I do, I'm always pretty excited. I was working on a project here at school for, as you see, I do a lot of the projects with you, and I didn't have texture on it. And then I was like, I'm going to add texture. I added texture. I was like, oh, it changed everything. I just added a little bit of like distortion to it. And I was like, that's what it needed. Like it just needed something. And I didn't know what to do. So I added texture. Texture helped the design kind of have this older feel. It looked like it's been around for a little bit. And that's what I was going for. The design was there, but the texture wasn't. So texture is the perceived. Again, we talk about certain words. Perceived is one of those. It's not real. I'm adding pixels on top of pixels on top of pixels to make it look like something else. I could also use photography. That's a great way to do it, and actually add in the real texture. I can illustrate a texture, but it's the perceived surface quality, because in the end, when we're doing the graphic design, and unless we're going above and beyond and actually having texture on the design, packaging, or magazine ad, or whatever it may be, when we're doing it with a print texture, it's a perceived surface quality. But it adds so much to the piece, and it adds that sense of like, I don't want to, not belonging, but people like, oh yeah, I get it. I've been like that. I know that feeling. I know that texture. I know, and by doing that, we bring them into the design. We bring them in. They're like, oh yeah, I recognize that. I know that dirtiness, whatever it may be. So that's why it's a perceived idea. We can have smooth, rough, soft, hard, bumpy, slick, whatever it may be, to get that physical feel. And we can illustrate that in so many different ways. So when we get to the project on Thursday, it's a tough project because you're going to be trying to develop textures. And a lot of it is, I'll talk about harkening back to like cartoons. Think of the Sunday funnies, or like whatever they are now. Like when you look at a 3-panel cartoon that you would see in the newspaper or online, wherever it may be. Cartoons aren't photographs, yet when we look at them, our brains recognize everything we see on that page as a physical representation of something. And then somehow in that cartoon, they're getting across textures to us. Like you do something like this, and it's like, oh, that could be fur, and if in context of me drawing a dog, which I'm not gonna, because I can't, not without a reference. But like if I was just like, let's do this. Let's do like the old like Snoopy snout. That looks like a lamb. So like all I have to do is got a little tail, and then if I do like little circles, I didn't add texture. But and this is the line weight is too thick. But if I just had like a bunch of like these, which for some reason represents wool on a sheep, we're like, yeah, there's texture there. There's not texture there. I just drew swirls. I drew unfinished sixes. But grouped together in randomness, it makes us think. There's a texture there. I have enough information. My mind says that's texture. He's sad. All right. So that's what it is. We talk about receive. And then, like, how do we come across it? So one of those, the easiest way is to think about cartoons. The hardest way, I don't know what like, but like to think about a cartoon, how do they get that across? Then the easiest way is like, I'm just going to actually use that physical texture, and I will show that in an example in a little bit. And it's a super great example too. I love it. Well, well here, it's the actual texture. So it's the tangible, it's a physical surface, characteristics of an object that be felt through touch. But actual texture can be done with a photograph. I want that texture. Well, and I think this is the opposite sometimes. When we're designing, we're like, oh, I want this rough, like, I want it to look like it's on the street. This is the only, in the sand. I want it to look like it's in the sand. And so we open up Illustrator and then we make it tan. And then we sit there and we like somehow try to draw sand. Well, no, just go get a photograph of sand and use actual sand. Use the texture and be done with it. Then we have the implied and visual texture, refers to the illusion of texture. That's Shaun the sheep up there, with the illusion of texture created through artistic techniques, shadings, patterns, and use of specific visual elements. You know, like, oh, this will come up. Should I do it? Well, if you just like kind of do those like, you know, we have a solid, you know, and you put those streaks through it, and I change my color to blue. You know, with white streaks, and it'd be like, oh, that's a glassy mirror. You know, like that's all we need to see is, you know, an area of a solid. And this is much better. And if I put those like white streaks through it, we could be fooled into thinking like that's a reflective surface, you know, like water. I just did a little piece this week, and I had to make it look like it was wet. And I just did a blue squiggle, like it was on a surface, and I just did this because it was on like a 3D surface. I colored this blue, and then I just put some lighter blue streaks in it, and it looked like the surface was water. And it was two colors. Like, it was weird, you know, like the things we can do to trick the eye. What does texture do in the role of graphic design? Adding interest and detail. Like I said, if you want sand, get some sand. You know, like it's got to also match the design. But if you want dirt, if you're doing something for like mountain biking, trucking, tires, you know, off-roading, get dirt. Don't just sit there and like kind of make it look dirty. Get dirt, you know, like add to that texture as much as possible. We can create depth, you know, like it's not just, it's the depth, like, oh, you know, like, not necessarily like, oh, I can grab into the piece. There's so much depth. Like, you know, when we did the form project, I'm not talking about that kind of depth where we simply, you know, like we added and we think, oh, there's depth in the piece, you know, and it's going away from me. But just the surface texture itself with the very small nuances helps us to think that there's more depth than there is. We're used to seeing that. And so we're like, oh, there's more depth. I like that. And then as I talk about with everyone, what the heck? Oh, the worst circling. I'm drawing on a screen and I did that wrong. Evoking emotions. That's our key play as graphic designers for most of it, is showing emotion. Why? Well, because emotions, when we stir up an emotion in somebody, they're more apt to remember. Psychology. It is true. It is built into us. We remember things that are emotionally tied to us. Something gives you pleasure. If I did a design, and you know, we do it all the time. What do we hang in our houses? You know, posters that give us pleasure. And every time you see it, it evokes an emotion of pleasure. I see that poster on the wall, And we're like, yeah, that's so cool. And then, you know, like, and we remember it. And somebody asks you, what's your favorite thing? You're like, you can tell them in a minute. And that's what it does. And that's what we're trying to do. If I want you, you know, like, you think of TV commercials and how cheesy some are, with coffee. All these coffee ads with people waking up in the morning and snuggling with their coffee, and it's an emotional draw. Like, oh, I want to be that cozy. I want to be like that. And it's like, oh, all you really need to do is like show a cup of coffee with some steam, you know, and like some hands around it. Oh, the warming hands around it. You know, like, oh, that I want to be that person holding that cup of coffee with the steam. Oh, and then it's like, oh, I got you. Next time you go to the store, you're going to remember that product and be like, you know what, I'm going to try Folgers. I don't know what it is. I don't drink coffee. Whatever brand that is. Contrast and variety. Texture adds a ton of contrast and variety. You can have flat design. We have a solid color next to like a texture, and it adds interest. It adds a change. The variety keeps us interested. I'm looking around more. Like, oh, look, you know, the piece has different things for me to look at, different things that keep me interested. That's the other part of being a graphic designer, is we want people to be engaged with our designs. And that means we want to, if we can create more visual interest, the more likely they are to stick around and really look at our piece. When I see a good design piece, I stare at it for a while. I may be not taking it all in, but I'm just like, wow, that's so cool. And it's not from necessarily the artist's sake, but again, take that from anything. Why do non-designers fill their houses of posters of advertisements? You know, you look around, you see a lot of people like hang stuff up that shows that, you know, like, oh, I really like this piece. And you're like, you know, that's an ad for like Nike. Oh yeah, but I really like them, you know, like, or whatever it may be. Here's the other one, you know, like you get those, and then that texture thing. I just thought of those like, you know, what do we have? Like live, love, laugh. What do they always do with that? One, the typography is always like, oh, it's like live. And then it's all swoopy, and it has all that. You could all, you know, like, oh, you know, it's, and that could be perceived as a texture. But what else do they do with those things? They always dirty them up. They always add like, oh, then this has been in, it looks like it's been in my house for decades. Like you just bought it at Target last week, you know, and it's somebody added texture to it to make it look like it was worn and weathered, and that you've been living, loving, and laughing for decades before anybody else. When in all seriousness, you bought it last week at Target. So that texture and that contrast adds to that variety, helps us remember. Like it can be used in so many ways. If you just had one and it was typed out in Helvetica, black on white, you wouldn't buy it. I would buy it because I'd be like, oh, that's nice, clean design. So texture is applied in print and digital media to create visual interest. Yes. We can have it physical. I can go so far as to have, it's called flocking, put on a design piece where it actually feels like a little bit like fur. You can do that. You can have shiny next to matte, gloss finish next to a matte finish, or I can do all those in a simulated style. So you can. There is a way to actually place physical stuff on a design as well. Tactile interaction in the physical design, such as, you know, it's tactile. That's why when we design those boxes, and Apple designs those boxes, and we're like, ooh, oh, the surface finish. Yeah, whatever. You know, yeah, they're getting it. They're getting you. It's awesome. I love it. I mean, I'm part of the problem. because I've create these solutions that get you to be all crazy about it. And then visual. The visual is just tugging at those heartstrings, making people think something that's not really true. Visually doing that. It's great what we do. Achieving balance between different textures is crucial. You don't want, again, I jokingly will say this, it's like, we don't want the throwing up on the page where you have 50 different textures just because you could do it. And same with color. We did color theory, we did color, and you don't, all those color, like even analogous, wasn't like every color in the world. It was 4 colors in a row, 5 at the most, and they're in a row. A triad, that's only 3 colors. Like, we got to achieve balance. When we do color, we achieve balance, we do textures, and we don't want like everything on the whole thing is textured. And I got a glossy texture, and then I got a rough texture, and I got a furry texture, and I got this. You'd be like, okay, that's too much, unless you're advertising a website for textures of the world or something like that. Who knows? But you gotta like keep it in check as well. So cool. Let's check out some examples. First one up, graphic texture. We have a design for some reason for Swan and Christo's 2011 tour. I'm just trying to read further. I can't see the full detail of where this is. But we have some moose, elk. Maybe these are elk. I don't know what animal it is. Beautiful background. So we could have done the piece. We could have had our message here, right? Let's change my tool. We got our message here. For some reason, I don't know these people. Maybe the elk or moose is part of a song or something in relationship to what they do. But then we need something. And I don't know which came first. The text, the graphic texture, or this design up here. Because if I zoom in, sorry about that, you can see this texture. And this texture is a graphic texture of, a repeating graphic texture in which they masked, that's the best way I can, clipping masked out and shifted it up. And so it adds a texture to the piece, 100% graphic. But then if you look at the graphic texture and I combined it, oh, let's make that thinner. It's too thick. And I draw over, that one too thin. What the heck am I doing here? Try 1 point. Oh, it's like all or nothing. So I can do a grouping, but that headline texture is, or piece is in here. If I just outline 2 of those, that's that shape which we use later on. Up here. So see, it's a matching shape. So we use the texture to add interest to the poster, as well as use it as a graphic design leading point that this can be fit in to the pattern that we have here. All right, next piece. Love what you do. Graphic design student show. I love this piece. Why? Because they did it. They cut it out. Who knows? Cut it out of paper. They designed it. Let's say we designed it. We traced it. We cut it out of paper, and we put it on this ground, and we, held it down with our shoe so it wouldn't blow away, and we took a picture of it. And that's what we did. They didn't sit there. They had the idea, right? And they weren't, let's hope that they weren't like, okay, I'm going to try to find on the internet, or I'm going to try to create this texture in Photoshop, and then I'm going to make it look like a piece of paper is a nut, and then I'm going to make it look like, and then I'm going to make it look like. Don't make it look like it. Actually go and do it. This piece right here, you may think sitting there and like doing this little graphic design piece, finding a black piece of paper, cutting it out, and going and taking a picture of it took less time than it would be to figure out how to do this texturally and get all these like awesome like shadows due to like the paper curling. Like this, you could do it. It'd take you hours, or you could just go and spend 1 hour, cut out a piece of paper with an X-Acto knife, go outside on a sunny day and take a picture of it and be done. And then you can take it outside. You can change it wherever you place it. That shadow would change, and so you could be like, no, I want it over here. I want to turn it this way. I want to turn it that way. Like so many opportunities. And then down here, once you bring that in, you have a high-res photograph. Then you add the graphic design piece. Right? So cool. And it just is a whole different way of looking at it, of how to complete a project. Love this piece. Take the soul train to Christmas. I just love that there's so many layers in this. So we have the couple, black and white image, or it could have been a color image. It was taken to black and white. Then it was a halftone texture was added. Halftoning is what is used to print in magazines and anything. It's actually used to print everything. Very close, not everything. Most commercial printing. I have to do this because somebody's going to be like, well, no, but what if you print from an inkjet printer? It is not halftoning, but it's very close to halftoning. So halftoning is the way we print with 4-color process. So when you print something out in the real world, 4-color process is used, which is you use 5 inks to produce every color. You use cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. So the C is cyan, M is magenta, Y is yellow, and K is black. It used to refer to a different term for the black. I forget what that is. But you have to overlap these with dots of differing sizes in a differing pattern. And that is called a half-tone dot. And so what they did is they took this image, they made it gray, and then they added a halftone to it, and then they made it green, which is just halftone, which is awesome. I do it all the time. I love halftoning. To me, it looks so cool. And it's a throwback. Then they added texture in the background. I'm calling it a texture. Later on in this class, we're going to learn about pattern. It's a pattern, but it can be seen as a texture. And then we have we have the typography on top, but they didn't leave the typography alone. You can see it in this the. They added more texture to the typography. So it's like layers of texture. We have this pattern texture into which these people are overlaid in a different texture. And then on top of that, it's a third texture, but it's all built together in this wonderful way. And again, why is it not too overwhelming? Look at the color palette. It's red, blue, green, and black. It seems like a lot more, but when you overlay colors, like this dark blue is this light blue overlaid on the red. Transparency changes the color. See how that works? So you can add more colors that way. But looking at a textural basis, it is a ton of things happening, but they all work together to give that kind of vintage, new vintage. I'm going to call it new vintage look. We can make things look like something else. This rabbit, if we zoom in, looks maybe like it's cut out paper, but it's not. It's just shapes with a little shadow on each shape. And one thing, I show this and I don't know why I keep showing it. I think I show it because it's a different way to do texture. But if you look at it closely, something that I'm a big proponent of catching and not doing is when you do stuff like this, to make sure you don't have repeats that show that I've taken something and just copied and pasted it and put it next to the other thing. So you can see in this texture, in this arm, there's a repeat of these three, and they're exactly the same. Exactly. Here, exactly the same. I would have gone in and altered it a little bit, altered it just a little bit. Because you know what? Our eyes can perceive patterns and textures, which may draw the eye away from what you want them to look at. So when I look at this rabbit, I stare at these points, and then there's some more on the leg. So I end up really just looking at these parts thinking, why didn't they correct that? Like, why didn't they make sure that there was no pattern? Because now I'm just staring at that. So, you know, it's a cool piece. I like it, but I think it needed to be done a little bit better. And that's what I mean by that. So, I mean, it's cool. I wish it was, yeah. I don't know. This now reminds me of that new ad. Who's it by? Some financial service or something like that, where they got the Post-it note guy monster walking around, the to-do monster. I think it was really well done. This reminds me of that. And then finally, let's dirty it up to dirty it up. This one's kind of all over the place, but I love the different styles of texture here. So we have typography with added flourishes, and the typography isn't just that. It looks like it's been drawn. I hate that. I got to see if I can reference this whenever I zoom in to not go to the center of the page. It looks like it was hand done. I sketched it, you know, and I added these flourishes, and it's transparent, and it's so that's texture right there. Then it looked like I dribbled and dropped like ink all over the place, and that adds texture. And then I have this paper in the background, and it looks like it's two pieces of paper. One has printing on it, one doesn't. One's got some folds and textures in it. It looks like a receipt. See the receipt down here? I don't know what gram is. That's something to do with biking. You know, maybe it does. And then we got the image, and then the image is supposed to invoke like movement. And so I think they did a lousy job with this, but like that overlapping, it looks like, jittery, gets you that feeling of speed and jittery. And up here, even though it's supposed to be a sticker and they added a drop shadow for some reason, they made it transparent and we can see the background through it. So I don't know why they did that. Would have been much better without the drop shadow. But that is some cool parts and why we add texture to design. It's always, I don't want to say it's an afterthought for me. No, I do a lot more of this kind of texture, like digital texture, over this. I wish I did more of this. I have to push myself to be like, oh no, you don't go out and get that. Instead of just, I think our mind is like, if I have to get up out of my chair and do something, it's going to take longer. And so we sit at our computers and not get up. And then so we try to figure out how to do it by not leaving our computers. But in the fact that if you could do something like this, it's 100% worth leaving your computer and getting up and doing something like this. So cool. Any questions on texture? All right. Let's look for some texture. Let's look for some texture. So Tuesday's assignments. The textbook is on texture. Got it to match up. I laugh a little bit because for years the textbook didn't match where we were at. because the physical book was in different, like you're reading this out of order. I don't know if you knew that, but there you go. Let's look at some texture, some pieces, cut out a board, scratched up, some great ideas. Oh, I love that. Like zooming in, but it's like words. You don't notice that? That's a cool assignment where you start with an image and then as you zoom in, you get a message. This typography. Cool stuff. Take a look through. Let me know what you think. You know, give it a quick read over. Give me a paragraph about what you think about it. We know how to do that. We are still using your preferred program for creating these. It can be any program you want to use. As I said, by unit 8, I think it's before 8. We will start using Illustrator and InDesign to create these. So get ready for that. But for right now, it's still the standards. We need to find some texture images. So I am going to make sure I'm logged into my school account. I'm going to go to slides. I want a blank presentation. I chose that color one for the last time. I don't want images, but I do want this. Nope. I like this, but this one shows texture. Let's see here. There we go. Design elements. Texture. Joel Skaja. I don't need the month and day. So what am I going to do? Get rid of it. You have the power to get rid of it. I don't want to see you have designs and then like your designs have pieces that aren't needed. You have to learn to look at all of it and delete what you don't need. I think I'm going to stick with the trees. I'm just going to stick with the abstract trees. These are too much. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. And then you just delete. You know, these are all modifiable for what you want to do. Oh, I should. But again, I deleted something. I was like, oh, keep it. Why do I want to keep it? That's for the wording. Now, the other thing, so if I do, let's say, book cover. So what I can do is set one up perfect and just copy and paste. It doesn't always have to be tiny. Oh, I get, yeah. I'm not going off the page. Remember, I'm keeping my margin. I'm keeping a good space. Even though I don't draw a margin, if you have me in a different class, you know I'm margin nuts. But we want it smaller. What's the longest one we have to write? Book cover, album cover, movie poster. They're all not too shabby. This should be good. So it's giving me, I'm going to put my example here, and this is that. So I have book cover, and I can just copy these. Copy, paste, album, and then copy, paste. I'm just right-clicking. How's he doing that? Just right-clicking. Oh, I don't want to do that because I want my text to be in the exact. I'm copying and pasting these. I'm not retyping because I want them to be in the exact same place on every one. All right. Book cover, album cover, movie poster. All right. Let's pick an era, hey? Did I do the 2000? 2010. 2010 best book cover designs. Now I'm looking for texture, right? So I go to images, I go to tools, I go to size, large, and look for a book cover design. Not seeing what I'm looking for. Am I? There, this is a little bit better. Let's double check that my size is. I'm going to have to go with this travels on the dance floor. Oh, you know what? Nuts to that. This popped up. Look at that. So let's see if I copy image, go to book cover, and I paste it in. It's too big. I don't want it jammed. You know, it fit it to that size, but I want to make sure that it's a proper size. So I'm going to go from the corner and I'm going to line it up. I want like that same gap. So I'm going to take, if it's there, I want a nice gap, and then I'm going to move it over. And I'm doing my best to keep the same gap all the way around. So there's my book cover. Now what I can do is, this is a reference. I can copy and paste this in. And I know when I put my album cover, it should somewhat match this or be smaller. It's going to be a square. It's going to be a little smaller. Best album cover. Let's take out designs. Again, looking for texture. Whoa. Oh, wait. That's just the startup. No. I want to do, but I don't. We've all done that for line, right? Everybody's done this one already. If you haven't, it pops up. Oh, there. Let's do Iron Maiden. I'm going to copy the image. I'm going to paste the image. I'm going to reduce the size. And I'm going to use this as the starter and know that it can always go smaller, but I can't go bigger. So I'm going to grab that corner. I'm going to make it the same width. And then I can bring it down. I'm going to delete the background. And I'm actually going to bring it down. I think I am going to kind of center this one. And then for movie poster, and jump to this. What is this? Oh, I mean, this is a good one. It's a little lower res. I didn't do my proper search. Tools, large. Okay, I don't get it anymore. I mean, that's it, right? There's a bunch of good ones. I'm going to do Predator. Copy image. I'm laughing because this keeps popping up on my thing, my YouTube. All right, I have to recopy the image because what I want to do is I'm going to copy this, paste that in where I want it to be. Then I'm going to recopy this because I want perfect placement. So if I can, I'm going to make sure that this, then I'm going to corner that and drag this out to there. And then that way it matches perfectly. So there I have it. I've got my 3. This is Design Elements Texture, File, and then Export, Download, PDF. Let's take a look at it. Nope, wrong one. There you go. All right. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All right, you know how to get a hold of me. We'll talk more texture on Thursday. Get the book reading knocked out, get this knocked out, and then Thursday we'll talk about the project and how to create texture. All right. Talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.